So tools, just like the life cycle, tools just like the software themselves have a life cycle, and I just put one of this life cycle processes right here. So you have the requirements phase, procurement phase, transfer phase, qualification phase, maintenance phase, and of course these are other life cycle processes than you're used to from looking at what we saw at D178 B and C. Well, let's look at some of those real quickly. Requirements phase, really what you really need to do, we need to define the requirements for the tool that we're going to be needing. We need to figure out, okay, what processes of our software life cycle are we going to be supporting by the tool. Then you need to say, okay, what functionality and what operational environment do I need? In other words, what functionality does the tool need to have, and in what operational environment am I going to use it? And then of course you need to define, does this tool need qualification, and if it does need qualification, I need to come up with a plan. How am I going to do that? Yeah, and of course you want to do this, you want to make sure that you do this before the system requirements review or the preliminary design review. Now in the procurement phase, that's where you're really going to use the requirements for the tool that you have specified and kind of perform the selection. Yeah, so you're going to come up, okay, what are the candidate tools out there that would actually meet the requirements that I've set up for the tool that I can use for some of these processes. And then of course you need to select what the tools is that you're gonna use. And this can depend on a variety of different things, maybe experience of people within your organization that have used the tool before, and of course basically these requirements that you have. So what you have to think about it, important to consider the harmonization of the software tools in terms of procurement, the technical aspects of the tool, and of course justification materials, why you're going to use this tool. And these kind of are specified over here. Now, on other relevant aspects for the tool selection, of course, the cost of the tool and its capabilities. And again, its capabilities comes back down to the requirements that you have set. You want the tool's capabilities to match the requirements. You don't want to have a tool that really only does partially what you want it to do, and as a result may introduce a lot of overhead by the rest it offers. Yeah, so very important to notice is that the tool, if you get a tool, it buys you a process. Yeah, you need to understand what you're going to use the tool for. Especially you have to realize that it's really hard to qualify a tool if you do not understand what you're going to use this tool for, what life cycle process you're going to aid, what life cycle process you're going to eliminate or reduce. So you need to understand your original life cycle processes. Otherwise you can, first of all, not determine if you need to qualify the tool, and second of all, if you do need to qualify it, it's going to be really hard. So then, of course, transfer phase means procure phase, you're going to select it and you're going to order it. Transfer phase, you're going to purchase it, you're going to inspect it, and you're going to put it under your configuration management and control process. Yeah. Then, of course, qualification. That's why we talk about the rest of the things. So we're going to skip it. Well, at least we're going to skip it until a couple slides from now. And then finally, the maintenance phase. And of course, while you have a tool, you have to make sure you maintain it. And while you maintain it, you also have to make sure that you still keep the configuration of the tool managed. It must be under configuration control. Now, that also means if you have updates, that also may mean that you have to kind of look if your qualification activities, like both your plans and of course, are still okay. Okay, let's look at the software life cycle. We said before we do planning, high-level software design, architecture and low-level design, coding, and then low-level testing, integration testing, hardware software testing. And so that together in D178C forms this V lifecycle process. So In the planning and high-level design phase, you can use things like requirements management tools, interface management tools, test planning and generation tools. Design, you can actually look at architecture and detailed design tools. And, some of those we talked about when we talked about design and source in the design and source code module. So you can go back there and just see, okay, some of these block diagrams like we had, like UML or model-based design, these have tools associated with it. Of course, there's also includes, for example, performance and schedulability tools. At the same time, there's things like coding tools, automated code generators that generate automatically code from the low-level requirements and architecture, for example. There is build tools, unit test tools, integration test tools, and of course code standard verification tools and metrication tools. So there's a variety of tools you can use over here as well. So you see, at each portion of your lifecycle process, you can identify a set of tools, and what you need to do, you need to determine what tools you want to use, and if the use of tools really buys you more than it will cost you. Of course, at the end is test execution tools, software problem management tools, etc., etc. Overall, of course, when we talked about configuration management and quality assurance in the previous module, configuration control tools are very, very, very handy. The configuration control, change tools, all these things, they help you out throughout your V lifecycle processes. Now, what you see nowadays too is that there is a lot of tools out there that are what we call integrated suites of multiple tools. So you buy a suite that consists of multiple tools. So you have to make sure, because you have to kind of beware of these suites. And, most of them are actually suites nowadays. So, but they may require you a significant customization effort. Yeah. So plus you get a lot of times additional tools that you may not necessarily need. If you don't need these tools, you may have to customize your tools so you don't use certain aspects of it. Yeah. If you use these suites, you also need to make sure that you have, that also comes with strong training needs. You need to train everybody to use these particular suites. And as a result, they also impose a very strong workflow on your team. And this workflow may not necessarily match the workflow that you have. Now, typically, of course, if you have a suite of tools rather than just maybe one or two tools, that comes with a higher purchasing price and also higher maintenance cost. Okay. Now, finally, the final item is that if you buy one of these integrated suites, necessarily means that all the components, all the tools within that suite have the same level of maturity. So that also means that you may like one of the tools in the suite, but another tool may not necessarily satisfy the requirements that you specified early on in the requirements base of your tool lifecycle.